Mercedes is under investigation for building an engine that might be too smart for the FIA to catch. How can a power unit pass every inspection and still hide illegal performance the moment it heats up? What you're about to uncover is a secret system buried inside Mercedes' 2026 engine, one that could change how power is built and how Formula One is policed. And here's the kicker: if this loophole stays open, the entire grid may be forced to copy it, or lose before the season even begins. When Mercedes fired up their 2026 power unit in private dyno sessions, the numbers didn't raise eyebrows, they raised alarms. Not because they were outrageous, but because they were surgically efficient. The ICE output was cleaner, the energy deployment was smoother, and the power curve was eerily consistent. Rival engineers described the data as too perfect, no drop-offs, no spikes, just a flat, controlled wave of performance. But when the FIA ran its standard inspection protocols, everything passed. No unusual software behavior. No irregular energy recovery mappings. And no breach of the 16:1 compression ratio cap. On paper, the engine was flawless. And that's exactly what made it suspicious. The suspicion centers on a concept most fans never hear about: thermal elasticity in engine internals. According to multiple engineering insiders, Mercedes may have developed a series of components, pistons, rods, and chamber walls built from alloys that subtly morph shape when exposed to heat. These microscopic shifts would have no impact during cold inspections, but at race temperatures, they would dramatically change the combustion volume. That shift, almost undetectable in real time, would increase the effective compression ratio by nearly 12%, resulting in a massive gain in thermodynamic efficiency and raw power output. All without touching the software or fuel systems. This isn't a glitch. It's a design philosophy. Mercedes, through their high-performance powertrains division in Brixworth, may have committed their entire 2026 engine platform to this principle. Their hybrid layout, cooling architecture, and battery deployment curves all appear to have been optimized around high-efficiency combustion. This means that removing the thermal expansion trick wouldn't just nerf the engine, it would unravel the entire integration concept. And that's what makes this so volatile. If the FIA deems the system illegal now, Mercedes doesn't just need a patch, they need a complete structural overhaul. And the timing couldn't be worse. Homologation deadlines are closing in. Once sealed, power unit designs are locked for the season, meaning any ban or adjustment after that point could trigger a full compliance crisis, not just for Mercedes, but for anyone using similar materials. Ferrari is rumored to be exploring a thermal expansion model of their own, but they're months behind. Audi, still refining their entry plans, reportedly lacks the metallurgical capacity to replicate the system. And Red Bull, working with Ford, is facing internal reliability challenges that have taken precedence over advanced mechanical tricks. The clock is ticking and the pressure is climbing. The FIA has now acknowledged that the investigation is ongoing, but has refused to confirm specifics. That's led to a wave of speculation and fear. Because this isn't like a flexi wing or an oil burn trick. It can't be photographed or measured with a torque sensor. It's hidden in the engine's behavior, not its architecture. And without thermal telemetry or a radical shift in the scrutineering process, the FIA may not have a way to prove or disprove Mercedes' advantage. Which means this investigation could become less about legality and more about optics. And let's talk about those optics. If Mercedes dominates the opening rounds of the season, the narrative won't be about Russell's talent or Antonelli's debut. It'll be about legality. About gray areas. About FIA indecision. That shadow once cast doesn't fade. We've seen it before. With Ferrari's 2019 engine. With Red Bull's flexible floors. Once a team is labeled as skirting the edge of the rules, every success is questioned. Every result becomes polarizing. Mercedes is playing a dangerous game, not just with performance, but with perception. So now, we're left in suspense. The FIA's silence is growing louder. The paddock's frustration is turning into fury. And Mercedes? They've gone completely dark. No statements. No briefings. Just quiet confidence, or quiet defiance. Either way, the stage is set. Because if the FIA drops the hammer, Mercedes may be forced to dismantle their entire engine concept. But if they don't? The rest of the grid will be chasing shadows while Mercedes races into the distance, powered by heat, and shielded by ambiguity. Inside the FIA, the situation is rapidly shifting from technical to existential. This isn't just about a single engine spec, it's about credibility. Senior technical delegates are reportedly divided. Some believe Mercedes hasn't broken any written rule and therefore deserves to race unchallenged. Others are warning that allowing this to go unchallenged would effectively render one of the key 2026 rules unenforceable. If thermal expansion is not explicitly addressed now, it opens a door no governing body can close later. And once that door is open, every team will be forced to exploit material behavior rather than innovation visible to the fans or measurable by inspectors. That's not competition. That's concealment. What complicates things further is the timing of this entire controversy. Mercedes has spent the past 2 seasons rebuilding their technical reputation after years of frustration under ground effect regulations. The 2026 rule reset was supposed to be their clean slate, a return to dominance not by chance, but by design. And now that ambition stands on the edge of disaster. Because if the FIA rules against them, they'll not only lose their technical edge, they'll also lose valuable time, momentum, and trust. And for a team that's already managing a changing driver lineup and internal restructuring, the fallout could ripple through the entire organization. From the outside, the paddock is anything but quiet. Ferrari has taken the lead in pressing the FIA for a formal ruling. Audi is lobbying behind the scenes for technical clarification. Even smaller teams, like Williams and Sauber, are watching nervously, knowing that any ruling will redefine what kind of engine architecture they must prepare for. This isn't about copying Mercedes, it's about knowing whether the engine you've just built is already obsolete. That kind of uncertainty doesn't just affect car design, it affects staffing, supplier relationships, and sponsorship confidence. In short, the whole competitive ecosystem is hanging on a decision no one wants to make. Meanwhile, Red Bull faces its own dilemma. Publicly, they've stayed quiet, not wanting to validate Mercedes' innovation or reveal how far behind they might be. But privately, their engine program with Ford is reportedly nowhere near ready to implement similar thermal tricks. And if the FIA allows Mercedes to proceed unpunished, Red Bull will be forced into a high-risk chase, reallocating R&D resources toward metallurgy instead of refining their already fragile ICE platform. It's the kind of pivot that can destroy a development timeline. So while the headlines focus on Mercedes, the entire balance of power could shift under the surface quietly, but permanently. And then there's the media. Already, the headlines are writing themselves: FIA powerless to police new engine tricks? Has Mercedes found the legal equivalent of cheating? 2026 season at risk before it begins. These aren't just clickbait. They reflect a real sense of unease, not just among rival teams but among fans who have seen this movie before. Every era of dominance in Formula One starts the same way, with an innovation that looks brilliant, then starts to feel unfair, then becomes impossible to stop. Mercedes may have found the first domino in that sequence, and the FIA knows it. All this raises a crucial philosophical question: where does innovation end and manipulation begin? That's the debate haunting every regulatory body in motorsport. Because if you punish ingenuity, you kill innovation. But if you allow invisible advantages that can't be regulated or reproduced, you undermine the very idea of fair play. Mercedes' alleged system doesn't exploit a weakness in materials, it exploits a weakness in the rules themselves. That's what makes it so dangerous. And that's why, whatever decision the FIA makes, it will set a precedent far beyond 2026. So now, everything rests on a ticking clock. The engines are nearly frozen. The chassis are being finalized. Marketing campaigns are ready to launch. And yet, this one unresolved question threatens to unravel it all. Is Mercedes' heat-activated compression system a masterpiece of legal engineering or a time bomb planted in the foundation of Formula One's next era? The answer will define not just the championship but the integrity of the sport itself. With every day the FIA delays its decision, Mercedes gains something far more valuable than horsepower: psychological momentum. In a sport where perception shapes reality, the lack of immediate regulatory action signals something more dangerous than guilt or innocence. It signals uncertainty. And uncertainty is a strategic weapon. Every rival engineer, every aerodynamicist, every simulator technician is now second-guessing their work. Have they already lost to a system they can't see or replicate? Should they pivot? Wait? Protest? That paralysis is worth more than any wind tunnel upgrade, and Mercedes knows it. Behind closed doors at Brackley and Brixworth, Mercedes is said to be doubling down. Not walking back. Not softening its stance. They believe they've built within the rules, and unless the FIA rewrites those rules with surgical clarity, they're preparing to enter the 2026 season at full deployment. That kind of defiance isn't new for Mercedes. This is the same organization that built the most dominant hybrid-era car in history. The same powertrain division that quietly pioneered split-turbo architecture before anyone understood its value. This is not a team that pushes the envelope. It's a team that redefines what the envelope is. But there's one difference this time: they're not just battling engineers. They're battling regulators, politicians, and public opinion all at once. And that's a war that can't be won with CFD or horsepower. It requires narrative control, transparency, and calculated media strategy. So far, Mercedes has opted for silence. And that silence is starting to sound like defiance. While other teams release statements, Mercedes tightens its grip. They're not negotiating. They're daring the FIA to make the first move. And that silence is speaking volumes. Elsewhere in the paddock, the ripple effects are beginning to take root. Junior teams are now questioning engine supplier relationships. Sponsors are reportedly pushing back against launch strategies, afraid of aligning their brands with potential controversy. Television broadcasters, who thrive on tight competition and unpredictability, are preparing alternative storylines in case the 2026 season turns into another processional march. This isn't just about a regulation. It's about how close the sport is to fracturing from within, not through scandal, but through silence and indecision. And the fans? They're not blind. They remember Ferrari's shadowy engine gains in 2019 and the closed-door settlement that left a bitter taste across the grid. They remember the legality debates over Red Bull's flexible wings and DAS systems. Formula One fans, especially the purists, respect innovation. But they demand clarity. They want to know where the line is drawn, and they want to see it enforced consistently. Right now, that line is blurry. And that's where trust begins to erode. Which brings us to the heart of this saga. Mercedes may have built something extraordinary. A machine so finely engineered it dances along the very edge of what's measurable. But if Formula One is to protect its identity as a sport where brilliance is visible, measurable, and earned in the open, then this situation demands more than whispers and rumors. It demands leadership. Either from the FIA, from the teams, or from the stakeholders who claim to care about the integrity of racing. Because without action, suspicion becomes certainty. And certainty, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. So now we ask the one question that will dominate every discussion until the lights go out in Bahrain. Should the FIA clamp down on Mercedes' heat-based engine trick before it reshapes the entire competitive landscape, or let it race and redefine what innovation really means in Formula One? Your opinion isn't just commentary, it's part of the story. Because in this sport, what fans believe can be just as powerful as what teams build.